Good morning, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe, some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I'm going to talk about something personal in this video. Most of my videos are objective, talking about ideas, not so much personal stuff. But I want to go on record with a confession of what I think that many ladies tend to overlook. They miss something important. By ladies, I mean, perhaps young women who are interested in dating, who are, available or trying to make themselves available or considering becoming available at some point in the near future. I want to describe, some of the things from my own history in terms of meeting people that I ended up caring a lot about, as well as modern trends which kind of fight that. By fighting that, I mean that they are well, I'll explain what I mean. So, a lot of the people I meet lately, the women and young women that I see and that I interact with, such as it is, are part of a group. They're a tight-knit collective where they communicate rapidly. They use technology and solidarity to become very self-similar between themselves, if that makes sense. And I don't mean to be rude. I really, really don't. And I think that while it's true what I'm saying, they also have their own personalities, their own unique individual traits and characteristics and identities. Most importantly, they are their own people as individuals, but compared to back in the day, and I'm kind of dating myself by describing it this way, when I was in school, when I was young in high school, the people who stood out to me, the people who I fell in love with, in fact, were they were reserved. They were withdrawn a little bit, and they were perhaps a little bit antisocial. And nowadays, this is frowned upon. I don't meet a lot of antisocial girls, and I'm 100% sure that they exist. I just don't see them very, very much. And it's not so much about being antisocial or emo, as it's called nowadays, but there's a kind of girl who I don't see anymore, who is, intelligent. She's guarded, I guess is the word. She's not so easy for people to access. She has, a dark wardrobe, literally, if you know the type of person I'm talking about. She has, a lot of insight and creativity. She has some artistic talent. She has, beauty on the inside and outside, but I don't mean to be overly picky here. It's just that I meet a lot of girls lately who are a little bit too easy to access, if that makes sense, for my taste. And I'm really not trying to be rude here. I'm trying to be honest but delicate at the same time. They have almost no boundaries. They have no inhibitions when it comes to being amorous with whoever. And this is a huge turnoff for me, and I'm becoming depressed about it. And that's why I'm making this video. And it's really hard for me to describe this because I feel like I'm being selfish, I'm being picky, and it's not who I am, and I'm not even necessarily looking for a date. But I think that I wouldn't turn one down if it were to be at hand, so to speak. So I think that what I'm saying is I wish that there was less connectivity sometimes. I feel bad that modern girls are as connected as they seem to be, that they are so solid and so safe that they almost just resemble one another. And I'm not trying to say again that they lack individuality, because they have their own characteristics, but many of the characteristics that are shared between girls nowadays are not entirely favorable to them. They're not really good behaviors. They seem to model themselves after, basic Barbie women who aim for, careers, and they want to just live the Costco lifestyle and have their Amazon deliveries, and they have no problem with being superficial. They have no problem with being casually cruel, and just all of the nasty stuff that goes around. It infects them because they're so tight with their sisters. If that makes sense, it's almost impossible to meet a girl who's, for one thing, available, and for another thing, who is untarnished, uncorrupted by the systematic breakdown of girls that goes on, unfortunately, if that makes sense. And there is a systematic breakdown of girls. They become, at least in this part of the world lately, what I'm seeing is they are pulled into this lifestyle very early that revolves around an expectation of physical pleasure. Nothing, meaningful or what is described as being heavy sarcastically by the same people. They are told that they're safer never attaching to somebody. They're safer placing their sisterhood as the highest priority, and never making themselves vulnerable, never trusting people, never doing anything independently of their group. And it's very sad to me, because the only alternative, which is what they choose to do apparently, and what they're forced to do, and what they seem to enjoy doing, which is the saddest thing, is to be superficial and materialistic, and to be obsessed with short-term instant gratification kind of stuff, where anybody and everybody who comes along is a potential lover for today. And it's sad. It's sad to me, because there's a whole level above that, and it's a gigantic level of profound satisfaction with your life when you look for something more substantial, more real. But unfortunately, I think a lot of people never get there, and there's a culture, a rampant, insidious culture that is programming people, especially young women, to avoid meaningful stuff because of the risks. And there are risks to you could get very hurt if you expose yourself to people. If you risk a deep, profound, eternal connection with somebody, you could get very, very hurt if it goes wrong. And your boss, your sisters, are going to avoid that. They're going to tell you to avoid that, because they don't care necessarily if you're living on a higher spiritual plane. They don't care if you ever get there. They just want everything to be peaceful. They want things to be easy to manage. And so you get instructions and advice from people that keep things easy to manage, which means never getting hurt. We'll just keep it all superficial. We'll keep it all, physical and instant and ephemeral, subject to change from one minute to the next, which unfortunately includes, group sex, just seeing everybody as being kind of the same model, like looking at people as numbers, looking at people as, oh, this is just one more of the exact same thing. This girl or boy is no different than the last, and no different than the next, but they are, and they could be much more different. They could resist the fear of being different. And this is what I'm talking about. That people used to not be afraid to be different. And I miss it. I miss, when I was in school, everybody was trying to be different. They were trying to be themselves. They're trying to find themselves and be themselves, and now everybody's just trying to be the same as everybody else by appearances. And I know that's not fair. I know that there are still people who are seeking, to have their own personality and their own mind, but it's discouraged. And I'm hearing lots and lots of stuff about how stupid it is for people to be themselves and find themselves and expose themselves and trust people, and it's really bumming me out. I'm struggling with it. So that's why I made this video. I hope all that makes sense. And I try not to be picky. Last thing I'll say just before 10 minutes. I'm not even in the market necessarily, but if I were to meet somebody, I try to stay open-minded. I try to stay. I try to learn who they are, and I give them the benefit of the doubt. But unfortunately, many times I'm disappointed. I have to admit it, because they don't look at me that way. That's why. So reach out with questions or comments down below. Thank you.